Hello, everyone. I am so glad to be with you in another Wednesday and another Healing Spaces check-in. I'm hoping that you've got your coffee ready and that you can just settle in for a nice chat about transitioning. As you know, that we've been busy with the theme of transitioning and shifting over the last bit. Also, in terms of us as Healing Spaces shifting and changing. Both Kath and I had birthdays in September, so it's a time of reviewing your life and pondering about where you're going for us too. Um, and so it's just been a theme on our hearts around transition. And I know that if you've been following us on Facebook, that you know that this week is all about self-dates and self-love. And so I was really contemplating, chatting about like transitioning towards yourself and transitioning towards a commitment towards yourself. But it's interesting because I got stuck. And why I got stuck is that often we know what to do. I mean, you know how to have a coffee date with yourself, and you know to do your nails, and you know to, like put yourself first and put in boundaries. And I think we do a lot of that stuff, or we know a lot of that stuff. But I think the question is really, why don't we do it? Why is transitioning so difficult? What keeps us from making those changes that we know innately will be good for us? And, and often, if we don't do it, we sit with that regret and that guilt, and we're like, oh, I should have done that. That would have been good for me. I would have excelled at that. But then we sit and we get stuck. And so I was thinking about why is transitions so difficult, so complex, and why do we know what we do, what we need to do, but we often just don't mobilize ourselves to do that? And so I found an article from Dr. Shannon Kulowski, and she gave a bit of tips, but then as it unfolded, it kind of unraveled in my head as well. And so I'm going to chat a little bit today about why transitions is so difficult, but please send your comments. Let me know, why are you finding transitions difficult? And obviously, we want to speak a little bit about resolutions. I'm bringing an interesting twist for you in the end, so we'll chat about that too. But please share your thoughts in your comments, and possibly also what are you currently transitioning in? I think to really unpack transitions, we've been speaking about transitions, but there's so many different transitions. There's the practical transitions of moving a house or changing a job. There's the differences in relationships where we have to shift where a relationship is going. Maybe the one person is growing a little bit and then the other person has to follow, or maybe you are changing partners and now it's difficult for your friends to cope with. So relationship shifts and transition and change. Maybe a friend is moving away, so now that relationship is different. And then there's emotional shifts and changes. Things that I want to make, like almost like an intention or a commitment. I want to be more like this. I want to be more like that. And then biologically we're shifting and changing and transforming. It's interesting just over the last bit how I'm realizing like I'm getting older. Things that used to be easy in my 20s is not so easy anymore. And so these things are constantly happening, yet we have such a hate, I don't want to say love hate, like a hate relationship with change. So why is it with change? So why is it so difficult? I think the first thing on my list here is transitioning shakes your identity. It shifts you. It ruffles you up. It makes you question, who am I? I'm thinking about like when you get up out of bed. So when you climb into bed, you've got this beautifully made bed and it's crisp and pristine. And you climb into a bed and then it's ruffled and it's a mess. And then the next morning you have a messy bed and you have to make it all over again. And I think this is really what transitions does to us, is that we know something about ourselves, but then it shifts and it changes. So I know myself to be for example, Afrikaans speaking and from Pretoria, and then I moved to Cape Town, and then that's a whole new ball game, and that's completely different. Or I know myself as an occupational therapist, but now I'm changing careers, and then where does that leave me? So I think it shakes our identity, and we are so scared of losing parts of our identity. Sometimes the good parts, but sometimes we're even scared of losing the bad parts. And I think it's almost like if you have the image of this metaphor of this making the bed, it's almost like you have to remake your bed every day, and you have to renegotiate, relearn to find your identity. And that cliche that we know all so well of finding ourselves, isn't that just the journey? But I think that in our pursuit of finding a definite answer, we get so caught up, and then transitioning and shifting is difficult for us because it means, kind of have to start the journey again. And that's why it's almost like I don't want to do that again. Which brings me to another point is that transitions take effort. They are hard work. I mean, maintaining status quo is beautiful and easy, and I can just keep on doing the same thing in the same way. I currently have an issue with my car, and it'll actually be nice to just kind of keep on having this car and keep on not having to pay for a car. But eventually, I'm going to have to shift and change. But that'll require effort on my part. I'll have to sell a car, I'll have to buy a new car. Like I think we get very put off by effort, and we have to admit we are an instant gratification, quick fix kind of culture. We don't like the effort. We don't like that things are taking a little bit more time, and I think it links with our difficulties in sitting with struggles and sitting with suffering. So I think that's what makes it difficult as well. If you think about struggles and difficulties, another thing that is very, very difficult about and makes transition so hard is that they bring about doubt in us. It's that struggle that I'm speaking of, and we don't like that struggle. We don't like to sit with doubt or insecurities or what ifs or what nows. We like things to be clear and sorted out. And a shift or a transition brings that. Sometimes we have to question our motives. Why am I doing this? Is this really necessary? And I think doubt can be wonderful because doubt can be encouraging, and doubt can almost highlight where in my life do I need a change and where in my life do I need a shift. But unfortunately, it can also bring about doubt in a wrong way. Nah, maybe I'll just leave this. Maybe I don't need this change in my life. Maybe I'm okay just as I am. No, no, no. And so I think doubt in ourselves and our abilities, in our motives and where we are going also adds to transitions and the difficulties in them. Take that doubt a step further, and we have to speak about the big F word, fear. It's scary. Transitions are like they're scary. We don't know the outcome. We can plan and prepare, but there's a part of this that's just up to the universe and up to how life will unfold, and that's often very difficult for us because they they're scary to make, and they're scary to bring about in our lives. They bring about not only the fear of the future, but sometimes they bring about the fear of the past. They bring that little voice that says, the last time that you've done this, this didn't work. Nah, you won't amount to anything, so don't even try. You know what? Your grade art teacher was fine, right, all along. You're not going to make it in life, so just give up. And so I think they also bring up past pains, past hurts. And in that process, sometimes we reject transitioning and we say, like, I don't want to transition, it's just too scary. Obviously, there's a big issue with you not feeling safe or perhaps even ready for the change. But I think we also need to acknowledge that sometimes fear can be a rationalization, to not put in the hard effort, to not persevere through the suffering and the doubt, and to not shake our identities, because sometimes shaking our identities is not a bad thing. The other thing is that I think that they make our worlds very small. This is the issue. So, say for example, you have to shift or change something. New job, just as an example. You can get so honed in, so focused, so over focused, and that makes your world very, very small. And we know that when we lose perspective, we are in a very dodgy space because losing perspective often makes me lead to my negative perspective or my one-sided view, and often to the lie, not to the truth. So I think when we are transitioning and we get so kind of closed into this whole process of transitioning, that kind of becomes the only thing that our life is about, and we forget that our life is about so much more, and that your life is bigger than just this one shift or change. Something as silly and as easy like as changing the layout of your house, that's not who you are. That's not what you're about. So if we get our lives to be so small, then we get stuck in that smallness. And stuckness, we know, is kind of the evil that illness sits around. Like stuck anger, stuck sadness. It's the stuckness that's the issue, and we'll chat about that in a few seconds. So transitions sometimes make our worlds small, and that can be dangerous. The beautiful parallel or the paradox of this is that actually a transition can shift your world, and it can make your world so much bigger. I mean, transitions is about new opportunities, new chapters, new growth, finding different avenues. And so we need to caution against over focusing on change and letting that be the only thing that kind of keeps us going, or the thing that absorbs our thoughts and especially our negative thoughts, so that our worlds become wrapped around, oh my word, this change is impossible. I think adding on to that is that if we feel like this problem is so big, this change is so big, the world is now redundant for us, and we are feeling super small, change can often lead us to inactivity, not just passivity, but also addictive and escapist behavior. And I think that's another issue, is that it's this thing of like, once you get stuck, then you get stuck properly. And so that's a danger in transition. And I think that's why it's difficult, because once we get stuck and once we don't do anything, it becomes easier to just do nothing. Yeah, that carefully. Once we stop doing, it's easier to stop doing completely. And so, in our fear, our doubt, our kind of worry about how this change will shift us, how this will change our relationships, that we get to a point where we say, like, I'll just do nothing. Or I'll do something to just avoid this change and shift completely. And that is, can I almost say, that's where you can wallow in the mud and not move forward. And what is so interesting is that you have to make your bed every day. I mean, you're going to get into your bed every night, and every day it's going to be a whole mess, and you have to remake your bed, and change will happen. And I know a lot of us say, well, then I'll just not make my bed. Then I'll make my bed beautifully, but I'll just not sleep on it. I'll sleep on the floor. That's not life. That's not living. Your life is not asking you to sleep on top of your life or on the side or in a complete mess. Your life is calling on you to live fully. And so we have to embrace transitions, even though they shake us, but they'll open up new chapters. Even though they bring doubt and they're scary, if we can start to tolerate discomfort a little bit more, then we can move through it. If we can open up our perspective and see what this brings to us, but also that it's just a change. And changes are happening all around, and we don't have to be so scared of them, because more often than not, they bring good into our lives. It's so interesting that when I went through this whole thing about why transitioning is so hard, a lot of websites and articles and books that I kind of consulted had this list. I'll read some of them to you, and I think they're valuable. Challenge the change, be prepared in advance, set realistic expectations, seize new opportunities, address your feelings, appreciate the change, blah, blah, you hear me, blah, blah, blah. I hear that. I think there's a lot of practical stuff that you can do to make change easier for you, to make change more manageable for you. But bottom line, your body, your being is created to change. There's in Gestalt psychology, there's a concept called creative equilibrium. That your body will always take you back to balance, that your body will always take you back to homeostasis. And even if there's change, change will ruffle the feathers, but it will return to homeostasis and to kind of a symbiotic being. And that where that level lies is up to us. Are we refusing change and never shifting? Or are we changing and finding peace again, and changing and finding peace again, but in that process growing? So, despite all of the beautiful strategies and steps, I want to leave you with two concepts. I want to leave you with trust. Trust. Change is going to happen. Trust that you can get through this. Trust that the suffering will end. Trust that it is not as big as you are making it in your head. Trust that it will unfold and bring you growth and hope and potential and new avenues. Trust. And then the last thing, the second thing, let it flow. I firmly believe that it is not the change, but as in the Buddhist saying, the attachment to the suffering that is really bringing the pain. If you flow with your change, if you flow with your transitions, and you go with where you are at, and I'm thinking about what Kath spoke about in the previous check-in, about just like trusting where you are and asking yourself what you need and what is it that you need next, and trusting the earth's wisdom, trusting your own innate wisdom. So, not attaching, not getting stuck, not getting deflected or escaping or making it bigger or smaller, but just moving with the change, moving with the flow, moving with the transition. Promise you that that will make your transitions so much easier. And I'm not saying that the transition will be easy. I'm just saying that if you allow yourself to flow and move into the areas of growth that your body innately wants to go into, that your emotions innately want to go into, then it can only bring beauty. So trust and let it flow. And guys, I know that it might be tough for you and you might be feeling quite stuck in a transition period. You're more than welcome to join us. You're more than welcome to comment. But please also reach out to someone if you need some specific or professional support in helping you to transition through a change and helping you to find that trust in that flow process of flow. So that's it for me. I'll see you again very soon. Have a beautiful day. If you are watching real time, please remember that we are walking on Saturday for Crazy for Walking, or else just come and join us and hop onto our website and our Facebook page and see what we're all about. Have a lovely day, guys.